So we're on Chof Beis Amid Beis. Bez Hashem, we're going to try to finish the parak. So we say, a melech, you're not allowed to watch a melech when he can't go to the restroom or to the Beis HaMerchet, so one is not allowed to watch him getting his haircut. Tan Rabban. Melech mistaper b'chol yom. A melech gets a haircut every day. Kohen Gadol me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. A Kohen Gadol gets weekly. Kohen Hedyot echad l'shloshim yom. A Kohen has to get once every 30 days. Melech mistaper b'chol yom. Shenem melech b'yafav techzina einecha. A melech in his beauty, you should see him. Your eyes should see him. So he has to appear. He always has to appear in tip-top shape. So he has to get a haircut at all times. Kohen Gadol me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. Amar Shmuel ben Nachman Rabbi Yochanan. Hoyul mishamis mitchatshes. Since every week there's a new mishmar, there's 24 mishmaros, and they do 1 week stints. So therefore, the Kohen Gadol gets a new haircut so that he gets to greet the new mishmar with a fresh haircut. Kohen Hedyot echad l'shloshim yom. Where does it come? Where does that come from? That a regular kohen is every 30 days. D'chsiv v'roshim lo yigalchu upera lo yishalchu. Their head you shouldn't shave. Upera lo yishalchu. But on the other hand, they shouldn't let their hair grow. You shouldn't send it out unmanageably. You shouldn't have a big chup. Kisum yichasemu. That's for shame. They should cut the hair with a haircut. They should keep it cut. The yalef para minazir. We learn out this. It says roish lo yigachu para lo yishalchu. We learn out para minazir. Ksiv hacha para lo yishalchu legabe a kayin. Ksiv hasam gadol para sa'ar roishay. He should allow his hair to grow. Gadol para. Mala alon shloishim yom. Just like by a nazir, it's 30 days. Afkan shloishim yom. So too by a kohen hedyot, it's shloishim yom. Utananami. This is where we get from that a nazir is 30 days. Stam nazir is shloishim yom. The stam naziris is for 30 days. If someone just says I'm makabel on myself naziris, that's 30 days. And we use a lashon para. He has to let his hair grow. So we say the same 30 days. That's the default by a nazir. That also applies to kohen hedyot. Where does it come from that a stam naziris is 30 days? It comes from Kaddish Yeh. The lashon Yud Hey Yud K Yud Hey B'gematria Tlasin. It comes out to 30. Have it? Amalei Rapapa Lavaya Amalei Lirbu Klal. Maybe it says Uperla Yishalchu. Maybe that means that that you shouldn't allow it to grow at all. Maybe immediately. Maybe it's just like the same thing. Every day you should grow. He should cut it. So the Gemara Amalei Iksiv lo Yishalchu para kad'ka'amrit. If it would say he shouldn't send out his hair to grow, it would be like that. Hashtech sivu para laha hashtech sivu para with a vav para lahave shlucha lo lishachu. It should grow, but it shouldn't be sent forth to be abundant and too much. So that tells you that's what we know to say 30 days. In fact, the Gemara, if this is the case, learning from a pasuk that a stam kohen needs to cut his hair every 30 days. Now, I never was brought up with this rule, even though my mother would tell me every once in a while, but it wasn't every 30 days, so we don't have bisman hazeh a din that kohanim have to get a haircut every 30 days. So Gemara dumya de yain. It's just like yain. Ma yain bisman biyahu da aser. Shlei bisman yashari. Just like there was an isser on kohanim, they were not allowed to drink wine in case they would be brought if they would be going into the Beis Hamikdash. A kohen's not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash when he drank wine. So maybe this isser of growing your hair long should also be only bisman. I'm sorry. So it's that. So it comes from here. That's why there's no isser currently, which says that a kohen has to cut his hair every 30 days. Correcting more of a yain shalei bisman bia shari. Is it true that it's allowed vatanya? And the mission, we bring a brisa. So the brisa is leaving out the Tanakama. The Tanakama says that a kohen bisman hazeh, that it depends on the situation. If a kohen knows which mishmar he's part of, then he's allowed to drink wine if it's not the week of his mishmar, because we're worried that maybe the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, and the Kaihanim of that mishmar will be Shisu Yayin and be asked to do the Avodah. Tanakama says if they know which mishmar they're part of and it's not their mishmar's week, then they're allowed to drink wine. Bisman hazeh. Rabbi Omer ni Kahanim asurim l'shis yayin la'olam. I say Kahanim are always asked to drink wine. But what should I do? They're because it's what he means to say is, since it seems unlikely that the Kehanim are going to be allowed to do the base, that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be rebuilt. It's been such a long time, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. So he says, therefore, Lamaisa, they can't. Therefore, we allow them to drink wine. So he says, since we're not worrying about the. So he says that you can't depend on the fact that the mishmar is going to be the one that has to do the mishmar. What if this kohen has to be lamaisa? He's the one who's around, so he'll have to do the avodah, and he'll be a shikar. He won't be able to do the avodah. So therefore, really, everyone should be required to. Every kohen should be required to be sober at all times. But because it's taking so long for the Beis Hamikdash to come back, because obviously people are doing averis right and left. You go into shul, everyone's talking in the middle of laning. So he says, Lamaisa, everyone, all Kehanim can drink, even without knowledge of what Mishmar it is. But knowledge of the Mishmar, according to him, is not really relevant. The point is that Takanasi Kakalasa, the fact that since people are Makulkal and the Beis Hamikdash is not being rebuilt, Kehanim can drink. But Amar Abai, and Abai said, Kaman Shasi Kahani Chamar in the Karebi. Abai says, so therefore, that Lamaisa, the fact is that nobody, certainly now, but even in the times of Abaya, no Kahanim knew which mishmar they were part of and what was the week of their mishmar. That was lost in the midst of time. The only reason, so they couldn't drink because of the Tanakama. So the only reason they were drinking was because the only reason Kahanim were allowed to drink was because of Rebbe, because he said Takanasli Kakalasa. So Michlal the Rabbanan Asri. But you see from this that the Rabbanan do hold that it's also for Kahanim to drink if they're potentially going to be able to do the avodah. Zok the Gemara, no. Hasamayim the time I hear you bana Beis Hamikdash being kohen haroy la avodah v'leka. Zok the Gemara says this is not enough kamino. How could you compare drinking wine to cutting your hair? Over there, the problem is if he drinks wine, the Chacham say a yayin, he's not allowed to do. So that's why yayin, the isser is not. According to them, still exists. In fact, the Gemara so the Gemara says, why don't we say the same thing over here? The Gemara says, it's very different, because even if a kohen lets his hair grow, when the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, he can quickly go to a barber and get his hair cut. But if he's drunk. It's not going to help. Well, there's nothing for him to do about it. So tomorrow, the 9 Purta Ba'ayil. Maybe you could just take a nap and go for a walk and walk it off. If someone walks a mill or he takes a nap, it gets rid of the effects of wine. He loses his shikras. So why don't we have the same din? So why don't we say the same way the Rabbanan Aser Yayin Bisman Hazeh, we should also Aser a Kayin not leaving his hair cut. Because even I want to say that's only up to a revius that this will help, but more than a revius, which clearly Kehanim are allowed to drink more than a revius, that's not going to go away. So therefore, that's mechuluk. We can't bring a raya from a haircut that a haircut could be immediately taken care of. Masha Enkin Shikras, it can't be. So I was thinking about the question. So why don't we just say that Kehanim are only allowed to drink less than a revius? I guess it's the other way around. Right. We allow hair because it could be fixed. But the Rabbanon, maybe the Rabbanon should allow, the Rabbanon who don't allow a person to drink, why don't they allow him to drink up to a revius? And the answer is, because we all know the nature of drinking. The point, all that the revius doesn't make you very drunk, but it makes you drunk enough to drink another revius, in spite of the fact that you're not allowed to. So you can't just, I don't think you can make a rule, you can only allow to drink up to a revius. Ravashi says a different text. Shisu yayin the machli avodah gazu hu rabbanon. Shisu yayin, that if someone's drunk when he does the avodah is not chal. That means if he does his zrika of the dam, zrika's dam, the avodah is not going to be a good avodah. So the Chum geyser on it that you can't. That's why the Rabbanan said it's also to drink, even bisman hazeh, because of the possibility that Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt. Pruya roish delay machli avodah, cutting his hair, which if he does it, we're going to see later on, he's chayiv misa. But even so, it doesn't possibly avodah. It wasn't necessary to make a gzeir on it. Lo gazu b'hu rabbanan. In fact, the Gemara meisve ve'elu sheva misa pruya roish v'shishu yayin. Both a pori roish and a sasha yayin, someone who didn't cut his hair, or he drank wine and he did the avodah, they're in chayiv misa. V'shlam hashisu yayin d'chsev yayin v'sheicher al teish. Ato banecha lo samusu. It says about yayin that you can't do that. El pruya roish minalan. So where does it come from that pruya roish are not allowed to? They're going to be chayiv misa if they do a kohen who didn't cut his hair. There's chayiv misa. It's because shisu yayin le pruya roish, because it's a hekesh. Ksiv roish am leyigal echo par leishachu, but layin yishtu. Mashisu yayin ben misa pruya roish ben misa. So tomorrow umino. So if that's the case, mashisu yayin the machli avodah pruya roish the machli avodah. So tomorrow, so why isn't it have the din? Why don't we learn out from there? Just like there's a chiyuv misa. Let's say it should also be invalidate the avodah. Why don't we learn out from the same Zeir Shava? So tomorrow kasha, it's not a good kasha. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, Hi Adalei Asa Yecheskel Man Amrit. He asked him, we just learned this din of Shisu Yayin, I'm sorry, of Paralo Yishalcho, of cutting your hair. We learned it from the pasuk of Yeches by in Yecheskel, but the Gemara is asking where was the Yecheskel was way into the what past the time of the Beis Hamikdash. So where was the Isser before the pasuk in Yecheskel? So the Gemara L'tamei Chadam Rav Chizda David Zeh Mitaris Moshe Rabbeinu Lo Lamdu Ad Sheba Yecheskel Limdu Kol Ben Necher Oral Lev Bar Basal Yavel Mikdashi L'Sharseni, that a kohen who's not Gembalt, who didn't have a Mila, is also to go into the Beis Hamikdash. Adaloi Bar Yecheskel Manam. How do we know that before Yecheskel? El Gemara Gemirla Vas Yecheskel Vasmacha Akra. When we bring the pasuk in Nevi'im, it's not in Tanakh. It's not intended to be the source. It's really that it's a Katalach al Sinai, and this is just an asmachta. Yecheskel was just brought as an asmachta, a support for the halacha l'maish Sinai. So the Gemara, the Mishnah continued. I'm sorry, not the Gemara. The pasuk continued. It said that kasam yiksemu, that the kohen should cut his hair. Gemara asks, "My kasam yikasemu, what does that mean?" As a shame, Tana kamin taspiris lulinus. The way they cut in lulinus, my taspiris lulinus. I'm reviewed on Mashmul. Taspiris yichuda, a special type of hair cutting. Hechidami, what is that? I'm Ravashi. Rosh Hashanah b'zat ikre solzeh. The head, after you cut the hairs, it's like a certain type of layer that the tip of one hair is at the root of the next hair. So it's a single layer of hair. Obviously, he wasn't our age where, that wouldn't, we only have one hair that goes across from one side to the other. Shalos Rabbi Ezu Tasper Shal Kohen Gadol. They asked Rabbi, what is the haircut that you give to a Kohen Gadol? Tzuru b'tasper shel ben Elisha. Tanya Rabbi Yomer that Ben Elisha had this haircut that the Kohen Gadol had. Tanya Rabbi Yomer loyal chinam pizza ben Elisha esmaisa. This is a very expensive haircut to get, and he said he didn't do it just to waste money. He did it to be an example so people could look at it and say, this is the Kohen Gadol's haircut. Hadjan Aloch, Perak Kohen Gadol, Now we're going to start. Now we're going to start Zebayr back to Sanhedrin, back to the court rules of the court. Dinim Mamonis b'shloisha. We had said in the first parak that Dinim Mamonis you need 3 dayan. Now this is anyone who's ever had any exposure to Bezdin knows these are very heavily litigated rules. So how do you pick the Bezdin? Zeh bar le'echad v'zeh bar le'echad u'shneim barin lehet oid echad. One of the litigants picks one, and the other one picks another, and then both of them together. Then both litigants together pick the third. The Gemara in Lechatchila is going to think this is talking about dinim, batei dinim. One picks one bezdin, the other one picks another bezdin, then together they pick a third bezdin. Doesn't really fit that well with the lashon of the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to ask kashas in it, and the end we're going to conclude that it's saying one picks one dayan, the other one picks a dayan, and then the two of them pick the third dayan. That's Rameh. Shnei dayanim bayrin lehen oid echad. The 2 dayanim pick another dayan, which is very familiar to us, right? You get 2 dayanim. Each one picks one dayan, and then the third those 2 decide amongst themselves. The Gemara continues. Zeh poisel dayana shel zeh, v'zeh poisel dayana shel zeh. Each one of them can passel the dayan that the other one picked. Each one has the ability to say, I don't like that judge. I'm going to talk about exactly if it's on no basis, if he's a mumcha, there's going to be a whole shittas Rabbi Yochanan and back and forth on that. But essentially, the point is that one could passel, he can reject the other one's dayan. The Chacham say that's only when they bring a raya that this dayan that's being rejected has a fault. He's a karv or a pasuk. But if he was a kasher or a mumcha, this is going to be difficult. What he means it's a mumcha, that means that as we'll see, that's going to be controversial. But the pashtus of it is, and the end, there is the saif of the maskana of the Gemara is going to be that the mumcha here is lav dafka. If it's only if he's able to, according to Chacham, only if he's able to prove that he's not a valid judge, then he could passel him, but not just willy-nilly. Each one can passel the other one's edim. The Gemara is going to ask, what do you mean? How can you passel an aid? It's not much of a judicial system. If someone says, I don't like your edim, go home. It's only if he brings right their passel. He's not able to passel him. Again, that obviously needs a lot of explanation. But let's go back to the first part of the Mishnah. The first thing that we said in the Mishnah is Remeah said, and then the litigants picked the third. In fact, the Gemara, B'tlas Asagi, what does it mean one picks a bezdin and the other one picks a bezdin? You only need one bezdin. 3 is enough. So now you're up to 6. And then they're picking a third. That's a 9. What's going on here? Hachikama. That after they pick one, each one picks one and the other guy rejects his, and then the second litigant picks one and the other one rejects his, then both of them pick one together. Zak Gemara, Vafilu loiva matzi ma'akev. This is talking about this is b'dinei mamnis. The standard dinei mamnis is a halva. It sounds like we're saying that even the loiva could have rejected the one chosen by the malva. Is that true? As long as the bezdin is in, it doesn't require the loiva to travel. He has to accede to whatever bezdin was picked by the malva. Like we say, Evid loiva ish malva. The upper hand is on the malva. He's the one who did the favor of making a halva, and therefore the loiva does not get the opportunity to object to which bezdin, as long as it's geographically accessible, he can't object. So how can we say over here that each litigant has the opportunity to reject the bezdin of the other one. Like Rabbi Yochanan is going to say later on the Yamid, Rabbi Yochanan is going to explain a different question by saying that we're talking about Arkoyish Shabbasurya. This is Arkoyish we know to be a Goyish Bezdin. But the Rishonim object to that and say we can't be talking about a Goyish. You're not allowed to go to Arkoyish. It must mean a Jewish court that's applying, common sense rules, like mediators that applying not halachic, but business principles to decide a dispute. So if we're talking about such a type of bezdin, so that's where Meir says that a litigant can, even a loiva can reject the court, because he could say, "Listen, you got these tumbleheads. I'm not going to these three nudniks. They're not a real bezdin." Aval mumchen loy, but mumchen you're not allowed to object to. Rav Papa says a different text. Afilu tema mumchen. It could even be mumchen going beidina de Rav Huna Rav Chizda. But it's like a case where you have the bezdins of Rav Huna and Rav Chizda that were both in the same city. The Ka'amalei mikatam adrachnalach, where he says, I'm not being matriach you, meaning that if the Malva says I want to go to Rav Chizda's bezdin, and the other one, and the borrower says no, I want to go to the other, I want to go to Rav Huna. You said Rav Huna, I want to go to Rav Chizda. Whatever the case, they're both in the same city, so I'm not causing you any problems. So why? There's no reason why I have to agree to you. Let's go to mine, and then they have to find one that they both agree on. Tanan. So how could it affect the Gemara? Tanan. The Chum disagree, and they say the Shnei Dayanim pick another one. Visa Agadat Kaminam Bezdin. The Kaminim Bezdin Basad the Pasilu Asli Ubarlu doesn't make any sense what the Chum is. The Chum is saying he picks one bezdin, then the other one picks another bezdin. The Chacham are saying then the two bezdins come get together and pick the third. But they were already kicked out. They were already patzeled. What does it mean? He picks one. We didn't say Zeb Bar Le'echad and the other one patzeled. All it said was that he picks one and the other one picks one. It doesn't say anything like the language. It says Zebar Le'achad, but then we're rejecting them. We're picking a third one. So it doesn't sound at all like what we're talking about. That where the Mishnah said Zebar Le'achad, that each one gets to pick because their choice was discarded. Allah hachikama kishazebar le'dayin echad zebar le'dayin echad v'zebar le'dayin echad shnei bar le'hed oid echad. They pick two dayanim and then together they pick the third dayan. So why do they have to go through this whole charade where they each picked one and then they agree to the third? Why don't they just agree to all three? Amri Marava Mishmeder of Zera Mitoch Shezebar Ledain Echad Zebar Ledain Echad Shnei Bar Len Oid Echad Yotadin Lamitai. This provides a protection that if each one can have input into at least one dayan, so that dayan will represent his interest. Not it doesn't mean obviously that he's going to corrupt the din, but he'll be disposed to look at his point of view. He'll push for that point of view, and the other dayan will push the other point of view, and then the third one will be the arbiter. But it's helpful to have someone who's coming from each side. That the Chacham disagreed, right? And the Chacham say that it's not the two litigants who picks the third, but rather the two dayanim who pick the third. Let's say this machlokes between Rameh and Rav Yehuda, and the Chacham is the same machlokes of Yehuda Amarav. The Amar of Yehuda Amarav, Eina Edim Choisman al Ashtalim can yoidim mi chasam iman. Edim shouldn't sign an ashtar unless they know that the other person with them is an honorable person, because it will reflect badly on them. Rameh, less like the Rav Yehuda Amarav, Rameh doesn't agree with that. So he says there's no reason that each dayan has to know who the other dayan is. All they have to do It's this, they speak for themselves. It doesn't. It's not a reflection on them. But one nislu de Yehuda Marav. So I'm not exactly clear how this will help, because in any case, each one of them picked one dayan. So even if they have input on the third one, I'm not sure how they're saved from the possibility that the dayan picked by the other party is no good and they're being stuck on a bezna with him. So Gemara, yeah. Amarav, the kuliyam islahu dervihud amarav. No, really, everyone holds like this. That each person, we're worried about who's going to be on the bezdin. That you have to get their agreement. He says that the only issue is whether you need the litigant's agreement. That means certainly the dayan has to agree to the third person. The question is, does the litigant also have a veto? That's what the machlekes really is. It doesn't have to do with the machlekes of Yehuda Marav, whether one dayan reflects on the other. Unless they're both, unless they know who it is. They would not sign unless they knew who was minchaysim with them. And they wouldn't be in the bezdin unless they knew who the other dayanim were. They wouldn't sit down and sudim unless they knew who was sitting with them. Again, shouldn't reflect badly on him. Let's do a little bit weiter. So we said, the Mishnah continued, after we went through the rules of choosing the bezdin, then we said afterwards, right, we had the same type of lashon that I'm sorry, that I'm going to say later about the Edim, that each one could passel only if they bring a raya that he's karav apostle. But if they're a mumcha, if they're kasher up mumcha, then it's okay. Sagt Gemara, kol kamina de apostle daini. How could it be if these are dayanim? How can the litigants come and say these dayanim are not acceptable? Or they're apostle, they're psulim? Why would we believe them? This is only talking about not real dayanim, not mumchen. They're saying that this is not a good dayan. It's not talking about an accredited mumcha that has a smicha from Reb Chaim Kanievsky. It's talking about someone who's a local expert. You know, he's respected locally. So he says, I don't respect his knowledge. That's Rabbi Yochanan's understanding of what Rameh says. It says that the Chacham disagree, and they say, but if he was a mumcha, any yachal paislin. Smashma that Rameir says even if they were a mumcha, he could passel. B'chal Rameir mumcha nami kama. The Marahachi kama. Avlam hayuk sheirim nasuku mumcha mi bezdin. Any yachal paislin. The Chacham were not saying if he's a mumcha, but rather anyone who's kosher. Again, we're talking about akoy shebesuya. But if he's a kosher, if there's no tzul on him, the Chacham say he can't just say, I don't feel he's qualified. But of course, if he's a apostle, even Rameh would be masking. I'm sorry, if he's a mumcha, even Rameh would be masking that he's a valid dayan. Tashma, Amulay Rameh, lo kamanu shepaisel dayan shemumcha l'rabim. In fact, the Gemara that Rameh says it's not within his power to passel a dayan shemumcha l'rabim. Sounds like he's saying that if it's a mumcha, he's not able to passel. So come on, no, that's not what it means. Ema he's not able to passel somebody that was appointed by that people have accepted upon themselves, but certainly someone who's a mumcha, that he's not able to passel. What does this mean?
I mean, Rameir would agree that a true mumcha couldn't be passel, but someone that not a mumcha, but he's considered now an expert just because everyone accepted him. Yeah, that's where they argue.
I mean, it's a little, but we were saying the other way around. Amar Meir, Oh no, they said to Reb Meir.
Said to Reb Meir.
That's what I was getting wrong. I was saying Reb Meir. They said to Reb Meir that you can't passel someone who's they objected to him. How could you passel someone who's it doesn't make sense. You could passel someone who's a mumcha, but we were saying Reb Meir never said that you could passel a mumcha. He says that to the Chacham said back to Reb Meir, it's not possible that you could passel someone that the Olam was makabel just because you don't like it, just for your without giving a justification. Tanya Nami Haki, the Olam Paisa V'Hayl Chayshi Kabel Abed and Shem Mumchal Rab. The Reb Meir says you keep parceling until you come to Bezdin. It's Mumchal Rab. The Reb Meir Ha Edim Kemumcham Dami. In fact, Edim are like Mumcham, meaning every aid is considered an expert. He's just saying what he saw. He doesn't have to have any special knowledge. In our safe of our Mishnah, we said he could passel Edim. So you see, l'chayra that Ramey is saying even that they're like mumchen, it's mashma that it's real mumchen. We're comparing them to Edim that are mumchen. So this is also a mumcha. This whole explanation of what the Sefer of the Mishnah is talking about clearly is not accurate. We're not talking about that the litigant can say an aid is possible. It doesn't make any sense. Like we said before, how could such a thing be? Tni Eidai. It doesn't. You don't say Eidav. He could passel a pair of Eidim. He could passel a single aid. Eid Lamai. So what is the aid saying it's about? Ilaim Lamaman Rachman Pasle. If it's just an aid echad aglabi moment, he's anyway invalid. So what does it mean he could passel him? Ilu shvuah nur him mehaven be kibei trey. Legabi requiring a shvuah, he is believed, and there's no special reason why a litigant could say I'm passing the aid. Just that it's the same problem as what we said before, that he can't passel Eidim. So how could he passel him for shvuah? Second marlo ilu moment. Loit shricha the kabel le kibei trey. We're talking about where Reuven and Shimon were in a din Torah, and Reuven brought an aid, a single aid, and Shimon said, "Oh, he's such a gavaldic person. He brought Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Of course, Reb Chaim Kanievsky is going to be made. I'm a kabel on myself, whatever he says." Moika Mashmal. So Dr. Gemara. So what is he saying? That this if Shimon then changes his mind, he's able to say I'm passeling him, even though I was originally makabel. My kamashmal and the Motzei hadabe tnina. This is from the next Mishnah. If this is the next Mishnah, you have a machlokes again, Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. If someone said, "I'm a kabel this person or that person," I'm a kabel your father or my father, who really are kroivim and therefore can't be dayanim, or I'm accepting 3 roi baka who don't know anything about din. So it's a machlokes. They argue about whether you could be chayzer. The Amr of Dimi Breder of Nachum Breder of Yosef could go into Kabel Lebachad. We're talking about where he was makabel to act as one of the dayanim. So we're saying if someone is makabel a dayan, he could. We have machlekes Ramei and the Chachamim. So why do we have to have the same machlekes legabi whether someone was makabel to accept a single aid? In either case, he's makabel something and then he's retracting it. So l'may nafkamina. Why do we have to say it twice? So the Gemara tzricha. Yitana abba v'avicha. If we said what it says in the next Mishnah that they're chaylik, v'hakam mirabban and delay Motzei hadabe, and that the Chacham say you can't be mahader. Mishum the abba v'avicha chazul alma. They are generally kosher dayanim. They're just not kosher over here. Avachad kebei trei de la alma lechazi. But over here, maybe where Reb Meir is saying over here, that if someone is makabel one aid to be like true, that he could be chayzer, since this is not really a valid aidus altogether. Zakdamara, let's just continue to the end of this shita. Hamiktani Reisha Dayanai, the Seifei Eda, from the beginning of the Mishnah, it used Dayanai, which is a Lashon Yachid. And then the Seifei used Eda of Alma Dafka Ktani. then you can't say that Eidav really means Eidai. Because if it wanted to use Eidai, it should have kept the same Lashon at the beginning. So you can't switch it and say that this Lashon is Lav Dafka, because it clearly was Dafka. Amalaza, okay. I think so we're going to leave it like this. So therefore,
So we have to back to the question of Adam.
Yeah, so we look on Rish Lakish is not talking about a Eid Echad. It must be talking about something else, and we'll see what the Rebbe Loza gives a different pshita. Okay, Shkayach.
Thank you. Good luck. Enjoy.
What
time tomorrow?
I'm a little bit up in the air. I have a bris tomorrow. I have to first find out what time davening is, so I have to find a minyan in Tom's River that starts early enough so I can get back in time. I'm gonna have to figure it out. I have to see. I think there's a 7 o'clock minyan. Would anyone be interested in learning at 8? Would that be difficult? Would 8:40 be much better?
8 o'clock. I guess I could do 8 o'clock.
I could do even earlier. I could do 7th. I could do 7th at 7:30 l'chayr also. Whatever. I could do 8:40 also, but it'll probably make it easier for me to do it earlier.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
8 o'clock is good?
8 o'clock works for me.
Yeah.
So let's do 8 o'clock. I'll send out 8 o'clock.
Right.
That should work. Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Good work.
Oh.